Hey everyone, Hale here today, and we are going to recap the entire 2024 MPO Disc Golf Pro Tour season. From new tour winners to a young superstar making his claim as world number one, 2024 had everything. So sit back and enjoy as we revisit the triumph and heartbreak of this past season. 2024 didn't have the best news to start. Unfortunately, injuries were the talk coming into the first event of the season, as world number one at the time, Calvin Heimburg, had limited shots due to an elbow injury. And the injury bug would unfortunately hit Eagle McMahon again, sidelining him for the first 2 months. Even with some of the superstars out or not able to perform their best, there was still a lot of hype coming into the 2024 year. Now, for the first time in several years, the Disc Golf Pro Tour did not start out in Vegas. Instead, the tour began on the opposite side of the country in Brooksville, Florida, at the Paul Macbeth redesigned Olympus course for the All-Star event. Now, in my opinion, the All-Star event isn't the most exciting event of the season. All you need to know is that Chris Dickerson is one of the most accurate throwers. Anthony Barella throws discs really far.
Does it have the stability?
Wow.
Continues to fight back.
And Andrew Marweed is one of the best MPO putters ever. The first Elite Series of the year was a 3-round tournament at the same course, but this time with a little bit better weather. This allowed the course to really shine with dramatic elevation changes and really technical lines. Olympus was able to challenge the field with the hottest round of the weekend only being an 8 under. Round 1 started with Ricky Wysocki, Anthony Barella, Nicholas Antala, and the surprise of some, Joseph Anderson, all holding the lead. Joseph Anderson, aka Joey Buckets, was able to maintain lead card status all the way till the final round, where he would ultimately finish top 10. Unknown to us at the time, this would be the start of a breakout season for Joey. However, all eyes were on Anthony Barella as he went into the final round with a 1-stroke lead over 2-time world champion Ricky Wysocki. Barella had a strong start and was able to overcome the demons of the 2023 European Open and eventually hold off Ricky for his first Dgpt victory, the first of many to come. The tour then went to Texas for a month-long stretch, starting out at Waco. Now, Waco's been on the tour for a long time, but there was a big change to the event this year as it was upgraded to an Elite Plus event. This year it would be 4 rounds, with 2 rounds at the classic Brazos East course and 2 rounds at the new Lake Waco. Both courses complemented each other well, with Brazos East being shorter, wooded, and technical, while Lake Waco was wide open, long, and surrounded by OB. After 2 rounds at the Beast and 1 Lake Waco round, we saw some unlikely names join the lead card with Ganon Buhr for the final day. We had Luke Humphreys, who was tied with Buhr, and then Mason Ford and Nate Sexton, who were just 1 back. However, on the final round, it was Nicholas Antala from the chase card making the biggest push, going 12 under through the first 16, pushing out in front of Ganon and Luke, who were going back and forth on lead card. Unfortunately, Nicholas bogeyed hole 17, which would bring Ganon and Luke back into the conversation. Luke Humphreys was able to take the solo lead on hole 17, going into the final hole with 1 stroke over Buhr and Antala. Unfortunately, Luke was out of position on his drive, and Ganon put himself in a spot where he could birdie. Luke decided to go aggressive and try to get that birdie to avoid a playoff with Ganon, but he threw his upshot out of bounds. Ganon then proceeds to throw a massive over-the-top approach to get himself into C1, where he would eventually make his putt for birdie to get the outright victory. Next up was the Open at Austin. Weather, unfortunately, would be a factor in this tournament, as delays caused the final round to be shortened to just 15 holes. The final round was Antala at 19 under, Buhr at 17 under, and then Joey Buckets and Matt Oram at 16 under. When coverage started on Sunday, the attention was quickly drawn to the 3rd card as Cole Redolin started 7 for 7 and Kyle Klein started 6 for 7, but would ultimately go 11 down in the shortened round, giving him the lead when he walked off the course. Then it was the chase card making a push toward Kyle Klein's score. Calvin Heimburg and Anthony Barella were climbing the leaderboard. Calvin Heimburg would even tie the lead going into 18, but would bogey the final hole to knock him out of contention. All eyes went to Nicholas, who was able to claw his way back to tie Kyle going into the last hole. 18 was playing over par for the day, proving to be a tough birdie. After a great drive and a decent second shot, Nicholas had a circle 2 putt for the win, and he cashed it for his first ever Dgpt victory, being one of the most clutch moments of the season. The Texas swing continued on in the month of March as we headed to Houston for the Texas States Championships. This had been an elite event in the past, but was downgraded last year to a silver, so it was really good to see this event back on the elite schedule. The story of the weekend was Anthony Barella, who shot an 11.08 rated 16 under second round to open up a 6-stroke lead over Ezra Aderhold and an 8-stroke lead over Ganon Buhr. The final round saw some solid play from AB, but was quickly caught by Aderhold, who went 9 under through 10 holes to start. However, his run would quickly be halted by a bogey, which then knocked him off his groove, and he was only able to go 2 under after that, which was not enough to catch AB's score. Ganon Buhr, however, flipped the switch in the back 9 and went 9 for 9 to close out with a 15 under 1100 rated round. This still was not enough to catch AB, who would be 2 ahead of Ganon going on to 18 and play for the easy par to grab his second victory of the season.
Texas State Disc Golf Championship presented by Lone Star Disc champion, Mr. Anthony Barella.
Early on, AB looked unstoppable, and once again he would be in the mix at the Jonesboro Open as he was in the lead through the first 2 rounds. Isaac Robinson was able to jump up and tie AB going into the final day, with Calvin Heimberg and Simon Lizotte right behind them to round out an amazing lead card. This honestly was one of the most anticipated final rounds to start the year. However, it wasn't the lead card that was making the excitement on the final day of Jonesboro, but it was Ezra Aderhold and Ben Calloway from the chase card that brought the action. Lead card had a rough start through the front 9, with Barella only 1 down, Isaac Robinson 2 over, Simon Lizotte at even, and Calvin Heimberg making a push at 4 under. Ben Calloway was able to grab the lead late, but bogeyed on 18 to drop to 23 down for the event. Anthony Barella, however, would catch fire in the last 6 holes, going 6 under, and was able to catch up to Calvin and tie him for the lead on 17. Calvin unfortunately threw OB on his drive, and Barella was able to find the green and card the par to get his 3rd win this year.
Played Again Sports Jonesboro Open champion.
After watching the young generation of talent dominate the start of the 2024 season, it was the Music City Open that switched things up. Simon Lizotte took the lead in round 1 and never looked back, getting his first win on the year. Paul Macbeth, Ricky Wysocki, and Chris Dickerson made up the podium for this event. It was nice to see the names of dominance from just a few years back have a strong showing going into the first major of the year. And that first major was Champions Cup. Now, there was a lot of drama surrounding Champions Cup before it even got here. There was a course change, and then there were multiple date changes, but finally they settled on 4 rounds at a modified Northwood Black in Peoria. And just knowing that, we knew it was going to be a challenging, tough, wooded major, which is what Champions Cup is supposed to be. And early on, it was Casey White who really commanded the lead. Rain and storms, however, caused multiple delays, which meant that round 2 would be played partially on Friday and then finished on Saturday. This did not stop Casey White from being able to maintain the lead going into round 3. Alongside him were other unlikely names to be winning a major, and that was Joey Buckets, Ezra Robinson, and Andrew Presnell. Going into round 3, we had some shocking numbers from the top players. AB, Heimberg, and Wysocki were tied for 12th. Paul Macbeth, Ganon Buhr, and defending champion Isaac Robinson were outside the top 20. All of these players would be looking to make a charge to get them into contention going into the final round. Casey White would ultimately run out of steam, going 4 over in round 3, knocking him off the lead card. So now the lead group would be made up of Andrew Presnell, Ezra Robinson, Joseph Anderson, and Nicolas Antala. Chase card going into the final day would be made up of some Sharks. Calvin Heimberg, Ricky Wysocki, and Chris Dickerson would all make it to chase card for the final day, looking to make their move. In the end, Northwood lived up to its reputation of being the toughest course in the world. Although Ricky would start to make a charge, he would ultimately go even in the back 9, and after a slog of a round, Andrew Presnell was able to play clean, smart golf, and hold off to get his first major ever. This win was certainly the biggest Cinderella story of 2024. After the grind of Champions Cup, the tour went to Kansas for DDO. There we saw an old rivalry renewed as Ricky Wysocki and Calvin Heimberg would go toe-to-toe the first 2 rounds. In the third and final round, Calvin would go 7 for 7, taking a commanding lead. He would maintain his great play, shooting a 12 under, holding off a late charge from Ganon Buhr on the chase card to secure his first victory of 2024. Calvin would continue his hot streak going into OTB Open, getting one behind leader at the time Gavin Rathbun on moving day. Calvin went out to another hot start, shooting 6 under on the front 9 and finishing the round at 10 under to coast to victory. Gavin Rathbun, however, was still able to play strong and get second. This would be back-to-back podiums for him as he quickly became one of the names we would frequently see on coverage for the rest of the year. As we started to close out the first half of the season, your leading candidates for Player of the Year probably would include Anthony Barella and Calvin Heimberg, as they were the lone multi-winners of the season. What we didn't know is that from this point over, we would see one of the most dominant stretches by another player, and that was Ganon Buhr. At Portland Open, it wasn't even close. This 4-round Elite Series event, Ganon was already 6 ahead after round 2, and then 10 ahead after round 3. He would go on to win the event by 9 strokes, and there wasn't much storyline behind the tournament because it was literally Ganon's from the start. At Beaver State Fling, with Luke Humphreys and Calvin Heimberg in the lead on the last day, it was Ganon Buhr again who was able to make a late move. Calvin started off really slow and wasn't really in contention after the front 9. Luke stayed with Ganon Buhr, but wasn't really gaining any strokes. Ricky Wysocki, once again, made noise on the chase card, but he fell short in the end. So then it was Ganon and Luke who would be tied going into hole 17. With flashbacks back to Waco earlier in the year, Luke decided to play the tough par 5 aggressive again, but he would ultimately throw away his tournament with a shank out of bounds, eventually taking a 9 on the hole, dropping him out of the picture. This left it up to Ganon and Ezra Robinson, with Ganon holding a 1-stroke advantage. Ganon was unable to get in position for birdie, leaving the door open for Ezra to tie it up from circle 2. Unfortunately, the putt wasn't even close, and it was back-to-back wins for Ganon. Now, if you have noticed, Ricky Wysocki has been on the door a lot this season, but he hasn't been able to get over the hump. Well, at the Preserve, things would change. Going into Sunday, Ricky was lurking 1 stroke behind Isaac Robinson and 2 strokes behind Kyle Klein. Ricky, however, hungrier than ever, was able to birdie the final 3 holes and overtake Isaac and Kyle to get his first win of the year. The final US stop before European Open was the Des Moines Challenge, which saw the field strength lower a bit with some players already overseas in Europe. Regardless, we saw our first ever best friend battle between Anthony Barella and Adam Hammes. In the final round, however, there wasn't much battle as Barella was able to start 7 for 7 and go 11 under through 13. Ganon Buhr made sure his name was still in the mix as he tried to make another charge from the chase card, but Anthony Barella was able to hold him off, securing his 4th win of the season, looking strong going into European Open, where he would want to seek his redemption. Now, before we talk about the European Open, I wanted to run down the winners of the European Elite events. The Copenhagen Open was won by Jesse Nieminen, Turku Open was won by Nicolas Antala, Swedish Open was won by James Proctor, getting his first Dgpt win, and to round it out, Ricky Wysocki was able to take down both the Krokol Open and the European Disc Golf Festival. Alright, now it's time to talk about the European Open. Although USDGC and Worlds are looked at as the top majors in our sport, European Open always seems to bring the most excitement. From tight battles at the top, to the massive crowds lining the fairway, to playing the most picturesque courses in the world, the European Open always gives us that professional look that disc golf needs. European Open expanded its greatness by adding one of the toughest courses to the event, the Monster at Tampere Disc Golf Center. And this is where the major would get started, with names like Paul McBeth, Chris Dickerson, and Ganon Buhr shooting well at this tight wooded layout. Unfortunately, once we got back to the Beast, we didn't get that McBattle that we were looking for, nor did we get that jaw-dropping heartbreak on hole 16. Instead, we had Ganon Buhr who built a 3-stroke lead over McBeth and 4 strokes over Wysocki going into the final day. Wysocki would make it interesting, raptor legging his way to within 2 strokes of Ganon, and on hole 17 with Ricky Wysocki 2 strokes back, he would put his drive in the bullseye for a tap-in birdie. Ganon Buhr would throw a forehand that would hit a light pole and leave him at circle's edge. Ganon would miss the putt off the cage and roll OB, causing him to bogey. This would mean that things were tied up going into hole 18. Ricky had the box and would throw what looked to be a decent drive, but unfortunately his lie was near a tree, which would impede a desirable run-up. Ganon would go aggressive, going over the OB on the right side. Although his disc clipped a tree on the way back in, he would land in a position where he could get up and down for birdie. Although Ricky didn't have much of a run-up, he knew he needed to go for the green to have a shot at the win.
In the air.
Unfortunately, he would pull his approach too much and end up out of bounds on the right side. Ganon then stepped up clutch, nailing his approach in the circle, securing the European Open win and his second major title. Coming back to the US, Ganon Buhr was not done with his ways of winning. He would go into Ledgestone and absolutely dominate this tournament as well, eventually building a 5-stroke lead over Kyle Klein going into the final day. After a slow start, Ganon Buhr would birdie 9 of the last 10 for his 5th win of the year, keeping his undefeated streak at Elite Plus events intact. Now, Idlewild would be one where we didn't see Ganon Buhr near the top. Instead, we saw some early strong play from Calvin Heimberg, who would go into Championship Sunday ahead of Joey Buckets by a stroke and Isaac Robinson by 2. But it was Isaac Robinson who took advantage of a slow start by Calvin to take the early lead. At moments, Isaac looked unstoppable, and just when it looked like he would coast to an easy win, he caught some trouble on hole 13, taking a triple bogey, and then would follow that up with a single and double bogey on the next 2 holes. This would take him completely out of contention. Meanwhile, Joey Buckets remained steady and took over as the leader. Calvin didn't go away quietly. After eagling hole 16, he would bring himself within 1 of Joey. The other Robinson brother, Ezra, also made a run from the chase card, shooting an 11 down. However, it didn't matter. Joey Buckets went on to take his first ever win, nearly throwing it in for eagle on 18. Honestly, look at the shot. It is one of the best moments of the year, and what a way to get your first victory. After Idlewild, it was finally time to head to the tournament that matters the most, and that is the World Championships. The World Championship this year would be in Lynchburg, Virginia. They would be playing 2 courses that we've never seen on tour before, but honestly, they looked really awesome. Round 1 was at the Paul Macbeth designed New London course, and it was electric. Anthony Barella and Isaac Robinson both shot 11 under, setting up a great battle. In round 2 at the Open Bomber Ivy Hill course, Barella surprisingly struggled to keep pace with Isaac, and Isaac Robinson was able to open up his lead to 3. From then on, Isaac Robinson looked determined to get back-to-back World Championships, as he was able to hold off pushes from Calvin Heimberg and Nicolas Antela, who started to close the gap, but unfortunately suffered a devastating rollaway, which would completely knock him out of contention, allowing Isaac Robinson to coast in for the win. Not only was this Isaac's 3rd major championship, but he also became the first MPO player to get back-to-back world titles since Ricky Wysocki did it back in 2017. Some other notes from Worlds: Eagle McMahon, who struggled coming back after injury, was finally able to crack the podium, and a new superstar was born as Luke Taylor wowed us with clutch fairway putt after clutch fairway putt. Ganon Buhr, who although was never in contention, did manage to get a top 10, and Anthony Barella, after leading in round 1, had to settle with a 13th place finish. Coming off the high of Worlds, we went back to the Ganon show. Although Ganon was 4 strokes shy of the lead after the first round, he would quickly make up that ground and then take a 5-stroke lead going into the final day. There was once again a push by Ricky Wysocki for the lead, but it just wasn't enough as Ganon was able to get another victory, completing the sweep of Elite Plus events this year. Then it was off to the most scenic tournament of the year, the Green Mountain Championships at Smuggler's Notch. For some reason this year, the courses seemed to play much easier than normal, as Ganon Buhr was able to win the tournament at 46 under. Ricky got another second place finish at this event, and Evan Smith began to establish himself as a real threat as he followed up this top 5 at D-Glow with a podium at GMC. Next is my favorite tournament of the year, the MVP Open, 4 rounds at Maple Hill, one of the most iconic disc golf courses in the world. And after 2 tournaments in a row of runaway victories, we finally had ourselves a slugfest at the top. The tournament started with some fantastic play from Ezra Robinson, who looked poised to get his first win, but late in round 2 coughed up the lead to Aaron Gossage and Ricky Wysocki. Aaron and Ricky would go back and forth and match each other in round 3 to remain tied at the top, with Ganon Buhr and James Proctor right behind them. Ricky would get out of the gates early on Championship Sunday, going 4 under through 5, but would only shoot even after that. Aaron Gossage, however, was able to hold a steady pace at the top. Unexpectedly, we had a winless Paul McBeth coming into the event, and you could tell he had some extra motivation as he managed to shoot an 11 under final round to take the lead from third card. His lead at the time was so low, it was looking that it may actually hold up. Quietly, James Proctor put together a solid round, and after a couple bogeys from Ricky, it was James Proctor that was looking to be the front runner to catch Paul. James would eventually surpass Paul McBeth with 4 birdies in a row. Going into the final hole, he just needed to get bogey or better. After laying up his approach to set up for the easy par, he would go on to throw his chip forehand OB without crossing inbounds on the green. This meant that he had to hit a circle 2 drop zone putt to avoid a playoff with McBeth. And this by far produced one of the most incredible moments of the season as James Proctor nails the putt and takes down the MVP Open. Although he had won in Europe earlier this year, you knew this one meant more because it was here in the United States with a full-strength field and at one of the most historic events in disc golf. If MVP wasn't exciting enough, next we had the USDGC, the most iconic tournament there is. Worlds is seen as the most important tournament of the year, but USDGC is certainly a close second with all the history and prestige surrounding the event. A win here can cement your place in disc golf history. Just like the World Championships, it was Anthony Barela and Isaac Robinson who started out hot, going 9 under and 8 under respectively. Buhr was also close behind at 7 down. Round 2 was a close battle between the trio, with Ganon shooting 11 under to match Barela at the top. Isaac was hanging in there as well, just 2 shots behind. Round 3, it was the Anthony Barela and Ganon Buhr show, with Barela edging out Buhr by 1 to take the solo lead heading into the last day. This was setting up to be the 2 best players of the year going head-to-head in the final round to battle for the USDGC title. The AB train, however, would slow down in the final round with strong play from Ganon Buhr early. Buhr was able to open up a decent gap between him and Barela after the front 9, but Ganon Buhr could not relax because it was Calvin Heimberg from the chase car that would go 11 under through 14 holes. He would eventually get a course record 13 down. Buhr, however, would continue what he had been doing all season long, and that is closing the deal. He was able to just par out the last 5 holes for a comfortable 2-stroke win over AB and Calvin. This would be his 2nd USDGC title and his 3rd career major. This started the conversation of not just player of the year, but maybe one of the best seasons of all time. Now, to wrap up the 2024 season, we have the Tour Championship. Now, I'll be honest, because this format is different than a normal tournament, I've always felt like this event doesn't really matter besides the big checks for the players. It's so hard to follow up the amazing United States Disc Golf Championship with a wacky format tournament that hardly has an identity or history. This year we saw another format change, with the points leader starting the 4-round event with a stroke advantage over second, 2 strokes over third, and so on and so on. With Ganon Buhr's dominance in the second half of the season, it was assumed that he was just going to run away with this title. But Ricky had something else to say as he would fight Buhr pound for pound. Round 2 was especially epic. They seemed to go shot for shot, shooting some of the best disc golf we had seen all year. Ricky Wysocki would gain separation in round 3, opening up a 6-stroke lead. Now, Ricky is a 3-time Tour champion, and typically when he has the lead this large, he finishes it out. So many of us went into Sunday feeling like, well, the result is determined, Ricky's gonna win this tournament. Man, was I shocked when I checked scores through 9 to see that Ganon had erased the gap. This was one of the most intense rounds to watch all season, and I'm glad I was able to turn on DGN to watch the final half of it. I was glued to every shot. Seeing the emotions of every clutch putt, this had to be one of the best one-on-one battles all year, and maybe even the best one-on-one battle since the Mick battle back at European Open in 2022. In the end, Ganon would go on to beat Ricky to finish the season with a statement that he is the best player in the world. All in all, 2024 wasn't a bad year for the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Although the back half of the season was dominated by one player, and we didn't have a single playoff, there were still unpredictable winners, clutch moments, and head-to-head rivalries that kept us entertained. All in all, I'm sad to see the 2024 season come to a close, but man am I excited to see what's to come for 2025. Next up on my channel, we will be posting the 2024 FPO recap, which for once was one of the most exciting seasons, and I would say even more exciting than the MPO year. So make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss that upload. This is my first video that I'm doing on this channel, and I plan to cover more Dgpt stuff, along with making my own disc golf content. So if you like this, give this video a like so I know that you're interested in this content, and I'm excited to make some more videos for you all in the future. Thank you all for watching this video. This is Color Hail DG. Have a great day.